I'm going to move on to a segment here talking about the relationship between the UK and Israel. And what comes into my mind is something that I've used before, which is that if I look out into the eyes of our audience and I say, would the audience prefer me to be honest about what's really happening and what we think needs to be reported, or would they like me to be diplomatic? I think the answer is we should be honest, and I think we need to really start to ask some serious questions, even though many people can find these uncomfortable. And the subject is the relationship of Israel with the UK. So let's have a look at a little bit of material here and just get an impression of why we are flagging up this relationship. So this is going back to October 2023. It was The Guardian with the headline, Sunak promises Israel unqualified support in face of evil, but makes no mention of Gaza plight. And there was a little subheading underneath the photograph which said, Rishi Sunak's support for Israel, not just today, not just tomorrow, but always. So unqualified support for always. And again, Alex, I'm going to ask you for a little bit of help here. But if you promise unqualified support always to the end of time, effectively, what commitment does that make from the UK to Israel, in your opinion?
There's a single word for that at law, suzerainty, which is no longer being above the law, but being under the law of another country. It's also called being a vassal state. You're pledging that that country's interest will outrank your own when there's a choice of men or material, blood and tears, basically, that you will supply that to Israel come what may, even if you need it at home.
Well, Alex, thank you for that. I asked the question on the news. You weren't primed on that at all. But let's think about what Alex's reply really means and look at some more, some more material. We're going back to 2011. This is an article on the UK column website, Britain or Israel. And what we're pointing out is that no person, particularly if you're a reader of the Bible, no person can have two masters, because they will love one and hate the other. And so we asked that question of David Cameron, as he was also talking about his extreme loyalty to Israel. Let's have a look at a little video clip. This is actually from 2014. So let's look at what a younger David Cameron was having to say at that time.
You asked the question, what have I done today to try and encourage a two-state solution and a successful conclusion of the peace process? You asked, should I do more to warn of the risks? I come here as a strong friend of Israel, but also as someone who really wants to try and help paint a picture of what this country and this region could look like if a two-state solution went ahead. And I think sometimes we get lost in the process and who's up and who's down and who's given this concession or that concession. And sometimes we can fail to get our eyes fixed firmly on the prize of what this is all about. A secure Israel, safe inside her borders, her people safe, and a state of Palestine alongside as a good neighbor with all of the liberation economically and in terms of security that would bring. That was what I wanted to do today, and that's what my speech was all about.
So my question to the audience is, when we hear that clip, and we've now got the UK bombing Yemen, is that a result of UK policy or is it the result of Israeli policy? And I'm going to suggest to our audience that in 2024, we have now got no way of knowing. And this is a very serious position. But back in March 2014, the UK column was also warning of Conservative Minister Francis Maude, who'd set up a web of involvement with Israeli organizations, which included universities. It actually included the police. It included Israeli Force 8200. So we're into the intelligence services and links through to GCHQ. We had links with the Israeli government and its agencies and its education systems and its security systems at all levels, never discussed in Parliament, and we are now left with this residue. So if we come on to more present time, this is 2021, so we're advancing 7 years. We've now got the Memorandum of Understanding between the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel and the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office on the UK-Israel Strategic Partnership. How many people in the UK public are even aware that this has happened? And I'm just going to flag up, we have mentioned this before, but I think it's important to flag it up again. In the list of topics, we have diplomacy, and it says the consultations will focus on bilateral relations, regional security, counter-terrorism, proliferation, global issues, and increased cooperation in the multilateral arena. And for defence and security, it says cognizant of the importance of joint cooperation in the fields of defence and security as part of the UK-Israel partnership. The UK and Israel will continue their direct and professional bilateral development of the strong defence and security relationship within the existing frameworks between the sides. So we come back to the question that when we see events unfolding in the Middle East, are these the result of independent, sovereign UK policy, or are these the results of influence and control from Israel over the national government of the United Kingdom? We have no way of knowing, and we will not know until enough people start asking the right questions to lift the lid on this relationship. Sorry, just pop you back to Rishi Sunak again here. This is Jewish Telegraphic Agency with the question, where does Rishi Sunak, new UK Prime Minister, stand on Israel and Jewish issues? And of course, there was a glowing statement by Rishi Sunak here where he says that the apartheid claim of Israel is not only factually incorrect, but quite frankly offensive. Like any nation, Israel is not perfect, but it has a vibrant, multi-ethnic democracy with a free press and the rule of law. It stands as a shining beacon of hope in a region of autocracies and religious extremists. Do we believe that statement from Rishi Sunak? Well, many people clearly don't. And what is interesting is many of those people are actually Jewish, members of the Jewish community themselves. There's a recent London protest where we can see some of the signs here, one of which says that the state of Israel does not represent world Jewry. Are these opinions reported in UK? No, they're being censored. Apologies. And this protest here of a similar vein is in the United States, where the Jews protesting, one of the banners says Israel is responsible for 75 years of tragic bloodshed of Arab and Jews. So it appears to me there are many questions to be asked of the UK's relationship with Israel. And I would personally like to see the major media outlets interviewing and questioning members of the Jewish community themselves to get their opinion. Alex, we're very short of time, but if you've got any comment on my little analysis there, I would be interested.
The shocker for me was the wording of that memorandum of understanding. Of course, MOUs are a recent development to obviate the need for treaties, as Mark has often reported in the past. That text doesn't seem to me to have been proofread, let alone written, not even proofread by the Foreign Office or the Cabinet Office. Look at the Hebraism at the end there, between the sides, which you also find in Russian English, instead of between the parties, and the tautology, joint cooperation. That would have been fished out immediately if that document had been through Whitehall. I think it went straight from Tel Aviv or Jerusalem to the press. So and then to gov.uk rather, and then to the press from there. That says something about who's wagging the dog there, doesn't it? Well, the rapper Low Key, a British rapper of Iraqi heritage, who's very careful with his sources, so I'm happy to report his tweet rather than any other source on this. He reports that Douglas Murray, one of the supposedly conservative cheerleaders for Israel at the moment, was scheduled to host a fundraiser for Israeli soldiers in London recently. But the event was cancelled because of, shall we say, boomerang effect cancellation. Of course, it tends to be the younger and left-wing people who go for cancellation, particularly this kind that Dominic Campbell fell victim to in Ullapool, where the right-on staff said, "I'm not serving you, you're Mr. Brexit." But it can backfire as well, because Douglas Murray was going to go to this fundraiser, but the staff at the unnamed venue said they wouldn't even do it for triple pay. That's quite something. Low-key goes on in a subsequent tweet to point out that Murray worked for many years as a director of the Henry Jackson Society, well known to us from previous reporting, and that the executive director, Alan Mendoza, known to me at Cambridge, presides also over the British branch of the largest settlement building organization in Palestine, the JNF, where Netanyahu is a patron. So this is getting quite networky, isn't it? Now, Mr. Low-key has done a lot of interviews as well. I haven't got it in the show a slide, but in the show notes you can follow an interview he gave to TRT World, the Turkish channel, in which he went into some detail. Actually, I think that we do have that, but it's in a slide in the next slide's time. So park that thought for a moment. First, we'll see this. Israel National News Channel 7, Arutz Sheva, reports that actually something unexpected happened, another backfiring, really. The Biden administration, this only went through the White House, through the executive, not through Congress, decided to sanction certain Israeli West Bank settlers who were alleged to have done nasty things to local Arabs. One of the four who was sanctioned, Yinon Levy, was notified by his Israeli bank, Bank Leumi, that his bank accounts have been frozen. So Israel is doing internal Israeli freezes because the White House told them to. It's not a simple question of Israel telling Britain and America what to do. It seems to be rather more nefarious and layered than that. And a member of the Knesset, we heard Cameron addressing the Knesset in 2014 a moment ago, Mr. Sukkot, who used to be the executive chair of the Jewish Power Party, the clues in the name, has stood up for this Mr. Levy and said, of course, from his point of view, this settler is the salt of the earth. And he can't quite understand it. Even the radical settler wing of Israeli society cannot understand why Israeli banks are going for sanctions über alles, even domestically, when the issue has reached them via an American edict. It is, and he's quite right, although I dislike the people involved, he's quite right to say that this is illegal. There's no basis for it in Israeli law. And of course, the West Bank is not Israel de jure anyway. So a complicated mesh where it seems that the banks just follow their own logic. But then finally back to Mr. Low-key. Here, in the middle of this interview, entitled British Rapper and Activist Low-key Unravels the UK's Israel Lobby, he points out this particular case of Lucy Fraser, who's now the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport, that before she got any political jobs in Britain in the 1990s, she actually had an internship in an Israeli ministry after graduating. That's how ridiculous it's got. Also in the show notes, we'll have a couple more videos very recently produced by Declassified UK on the Israel-UK lobby, particularly on how they get into the Conservative Party, a long-term focus of yours, Brian. Look particularly for the interview with Peter Oborne, because he is, again, one of the few Christian conservatives who will join mostly younger, far more radical left-wing people in pointing out how unsavoury this is.
Alex, thank you very much. And I absolutely take your point that we need to explore the relationship very carefully if we're to understand the intricacies and sensitivities of it. But clearly that needs to be done. Now, I'm going to say that we've overrun for time due to our technical problems at the start of the programme. So we will end the news now. And particularly as we've got a guest waiting to join us for Extra. So I'm going to say a very big thank you to our audience for joining us wherever you are in the world today. And a huge thank you to all those who are supporting the UK column with memberships, because it's your support that is keeping all of our work going. So a very big thank you to you. Thank you to Mark and Alex. And I look forward to seeing you in Extra Time in a few moments. Thank you. Bye-bye.